Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of r/slash entitled people. In today's episode, neighbors purposefully leading dog away from his lawn to mine to relieve itself. Tour guide from a different company complains to my boss about me. You are not entitled to keep staff from going home and seeing their families. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Neighbors purposefully leading dog away from his lawn to mine to relieve itself. I live on a quiet residential street that only has one sidewalk on my side of the street. My across-the-street neighbor always walks his big dog past his lawn, which is pristine, probably the nicest one on the block, even if the dog wants to stop there since it's the closest. He will cross the street to my side to get onto the sidewalk, and the dog instinctively will go #1/2 on my lawn since it's the first lawn where the owner isn't tugging at the leash to stop him from going. He picks up the poop, but the dead grass patches are everywhere. I happen to live one house away from a large park with an open field, as well as a separate soccer pitch and baseball diamond. I've recently been trying hard to revive my lawn as it was full of yellow dead patches, and I've even gone as far as to water/fertilize purposefully when he is outside and can see me trying to tend to it. How would you guys go ahead with dealing with this? Here are 4 examples that highlight the state of my lawn. Some of them are ridiculous as the dog is basically all the way up to my front porch. Motion detecting sprinklers are a thing. Get some and put them near enough to get all the grass, so when the dog gets on the grass they go off. I sprinkled cayenne pepper everywhere. I had to reapply after it rained, but it worked. Dogs haven't been back. Black pepper works great too. One corner of my yard used to be the neighborhood dog toilet. After a few pepper sneezing fits, neighborhood dogs decided to look elsewhere. A few years later, I do a few repeat peppering each spring so that new dogs in the hood get the message. I suppose it would be horribly wrong for you to spray his lawn with something that would cause little dead circles. If you have cameras around your house, perhaps you could use some of the images of him and his dog for Christmas cards for your mutual acquaintances? Yeah, those things would be fun, but motion-operated sprinklers would probably be better. I'd say a really nice multi-season mini billboard of him letting his dog go on your lawn, so it stares him in the face. Tour guide from a different company complains to my boss about me. This happened 3 years ago, I think. Back then I was still working in a brewery as a brewer. What a surprise, I know. At that day, one of the trainees was working in the brew house for the first time alone. An hour before I could clock off, he came to me and asked if I could help him. So we went to the mash mill, the mill that will crush the malt into flour, and he told me it wasn't working anymore. We started the mill, and after a few seconds, malt started pouring out of the top part of the mill. I then climbed up the wobbly ladder we had and started checking the small bin on top of the mill. Now the thing was, the mill is nearly 100 years old, so we had to work carefully. So while I was digging around in the malt because I thought there was a plug in the bin, the trainee started screwing open the mill. The ladder was about 6 meters tall, so we both had to yell in order to communicate. And suddenly, the door flies open and one of the tour guides walked in with a few guests she was showing around. The trainee and I were still working and yelling, and suddenly this dumb comes over to us and demands that we stop our work because she's doing a tour right now. I was still on top of a wobbly ladder and should be already home, so I was quite pissed. I yelled back at her to shut up. Repairing the mill is more important than showing around a bunch of tourists that are only here to get wasted. Funnily enough, a few months prior to that we had a meeting with the big boss. At that meeting, the boss gave everyone who worked in production the authority to expel the guides and their tours from rooms in the brewery should they interfere with our work in some way, something the guides knew. So I told the guide to immediately leave the malt room, which she did with an angry glare. The trainee and I then managed to fix the mill and I went home. The next day, I was ordered to the boss office. He told me that the guide complained about me for being rude and unnecessarily expelling her from the malt room. I then admitted that I may have been harsh, but I was soldered deep in malt on top of a ladder over time. Please forgive me for not being in the best mood. I then explained what exactly happened yesterday and that the trainee can confirm my story. The boss then apologized for suspecting me and sent me off. The tour guide got a really stern talk and a formal warning. I hope she hopped to it from then on. It barely even registered. Sounds like main character syndrome. I was shouldered deep in malt on top of a ladder over time. Please forgive me for not being in the best mood. I can hear that tone of voice. On top of a wobbly ladder. That's the most important part. The tour guide screwed around and found out. You are not entitled to keep staff from going home and seeing their families. Some who don't know me long enough to have heard the stories think my job is pretty cushy, librarian. The pay is good, but I work in a downtown branch of a major city in northern Ontario. Like many in North America are struggling with the cost of living, mental health issues, and drug abuse. Bonus points for being winter in Canada. We're the only place to go during the day for me because we don't require you to spend money to be there. There is a full-time security guard, locked washrooms. I've personally witnessed 2 overdoses. It would be much worse otherwise. Yelling, occasional almost fights, and too many people you badly want to help, but there are not enough mental health services or affordable housing. So, to the crabby middle-aged woman who was angry, we don't allow the washrooms to be used barely 2 minutes before closing. You do not concern me. I'm using the same rules as the people know for not coming out for 20 minutes after close because they have nowhere to go. Neither of you are entitled to keeping staff from going home to comfort place and people. Keeping the rules for everyone simply makes life a little easier for a non-profit meant for anyone. Stay warm, everyone. Good for you for sticking with the rules of the library. Some people have no clue just how entitled they really are, SMH, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a librarian. When I was a little girl and as I was growing up, the library was my favorite place in the world. My elementary school librarian started my love for books and reading. And now at 52, I can honestly say that I still have that passion for reading. You have probably inspired more people than you realize. That is a sweet message. Thank you. I'm 26, and it's always been a place of comfort for me too. When I was in high school, I was pretty shy, so I would skip lunch and read in the library. I often didn't hear the school bell, so the librarian would call my 4th period teacher to let her know where I was, and I'd be there in a minute. I sure missed her when we moved. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and we will see you in the next video.